Hey, everybody, welcome to this YouTube Live. Oh, let me see if the audio is set up the way it should be. Um, Not quite sure it is, but I'm sure you can hear me. Thanks for joining this YouTube Live. First off, it is January 10th, the year 2025, and I'm wearing there it is, my Dwight Clark Legacy pullover. Um, Ever since Dwight passed away, uh, we've done this event. Kirk Reynolds has spearheaded this event to raise money for the Golden Heart Fund in Dwight Clark's name, and so we've had the Dwight Clark Legacy event. This year, it's going to be May 21st in San Jose at the Hammer Theater, Wednesday, May 21st. So hope to see you there. But this last year, we had a quarterback roundtable that included Brock Purdy, Steve Young, Jeff Garcia, Alex Smith, and as it turns out, I guess one of the highlights of the evening was there was a kid, college student, 4-year, 5-year college student, and he was in the green room before, and I was introduced to this young man who was quarterback at Duke, and then he was transferring to Notre Dame. And his name's Riley Leonard. And if you watched the game last night, of course, you saw Riley Leonard with Notre Dame. But anyway, he had heard that this event was taking place, and I'm not even sure where he's from, but he came to the Bay Area to sit in the stands it was at the California Theater last year, but he wanted to kind of just soak in the atmosphere and learn, hear what Purdy and Steve and Jeff and Alex had to say. And beforehand, like I said, in the green room, he was introducing himself around to certain people. And I was right there when he introduced himself to Brock Purdy, and Brock immediately knew who he was. And he goes, "Oh, you went to Duke, right?" And he was like, "Yeah." And, I'm transferring to Notre Dame. And so he did ask a question. We had him mic'd up in the audience. NFL Films was there, and they mic'd him up in the audience. And so he asked a question about what advice those four guys would give any rookie quarterback entering the NFL. It was basically, if you could go back in time and tell yourself something, what would it be? And basically, the answers that came from Alex and from Alex, Jeff, and Brock were to just stay in the moment. Don't be looking ahead. It was maximize everything that you're doing right now. Brock Purdy talked a lot about his own development and how those 4 years at Iowa State, taking advantage of every rep, taking advantage of every game situation, just building that reservoir of information and experiences, and how that helped him transition to the NFL, so that he wasn't overwhelmed when he stepped on that field December 4th, 2022 against the Miami Dolphins. That he had all those experiences that he could kind of bank on. So that was fun in retrospect to see that Riley Leonard will now be playing for the national championship. I'm not sure where he's going to go in the draft. Speaking of the draft, I put out my first mock draft. It's at NBC Sports Bay Area.com. Find that. My 49ers pick. I don't think any big surprise that decided to go with defensive line. Probably the better choice would be a defensive tackle, but I went with Shamar Stewart. I'm an edge guy from Texas A&M for the 49ers at number 11 overall. They need to add defensive line, no doubt about it. Probably their bigger priority would be defensive tackle. So I'm sure as the draft process goes through, the scouting combine, we see all the players who will be made available for this draft. We'll kind of adjust that, but that's where things stand right now. When you think about, they didn't have Javon Hargrave this season, only for 3 games, um, out with a torn triceps. He seems to be making good progress, but his contract will void and he'll become an unrestricted free agent at the start of the new league year. And the open negotiating period for scheduled free agents is March 10th. And then the free agent signing period begins March 12th. 49ers did tell Hargrave that they would like the opportunity to re-sign him. He was scheduled to make $19 million this season. That's why they redid his contract, to give him that opportunity to hit the open market when free agency begins. Kind of doubt. I think it's kind of a long shot that he would return to the 49ers, but we shall see. Just to bring you up to date, and thank you for joining this chat. I see Jack Johnson with a question that I'll get to right away. Thank you, Jack. I don't anticipate any interviews today for Kyle Shanahan as far as the coordinator positions go. The big takeaway from what occurred on Thursday is that the 49ers interviewed Robert Saleh. They interviewed Deshea Townsend. He's the defensive passing game coordinator / defensive backs coach for the Detroit Lions. So, having fulfilled the Rooney Rule, the 49ers can hire a defensive coordinator at any moment. I mean, it could happen right now, but I don't anticipate it to happen right now because Robert Saleh still has a few things that he wants to look at as far as the potential of becoming a head coach again in the NFL. Fired after 5 games with the New York Jets. Obviously, that didn't turn out so well for the Jets because I think they really weakened their own defense. Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, became the head coach, so he couldn't be as involved in the defense as he had been, and the Jets defense kind of fell off the face of the earth. So anyway, Saleh will have head coaching opportunities with the Raiders, and the Raiders are looking for a head coach. They're looking for a general manager, the one and done tenures, if you will, of Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco. So Raiders making some wholesale changes, and also the Jaguars are on the list for Robert Saleh to interview with. So that's where things stand right now. 49ers also have the vacancy at special teams coordinator. The leader in the clubhouse there, the person that I would expect to end up getting that job if he decides he wants to remain with the 49ers, that's Nick Sorensen. So that's where things are with that. Let's go right here. Jack Jackson chimes in. Thank you so much, Jack, for your support there. He asked about drafting Webster. I think it's Wester, right? LeJohntay Wester from the Colorado Buffaloes. He'll be able to replace Samuel when Samuel's contract is up. Wester is a younger, faster, with great hands. He's also really small, right? Isn't he like 5? He's under 6 foot. I think he's 170 pounds, soaking wet. It seems to me the 49ers already have somebody like that in Jacob Cowing. But if you're looking at the wide receiver position for the 49ers, just looking, just immediately at the depth chart right now, I asked John Lynch straight up on Wednesday, what is Deebo Samuel's status? What is his future with the club? And John Lynch said that Deebo Samuel's under contract. He's playing a lot of good football for the 49ers, and they're not in the business of letting good football players get away. So we'll see what the 49ers do with that contract as far as, do they even entertain the thought of extending him? I don't know. But, according to John Lynch, Deebo Samuel will be on the team for the upcoming season. And that's something that, certainly not a surprise because of what Deebo Samuel has brought to the table in the past, what he showed in some games late in the season. And the fact of the matter is the 49ers have a lot of unanswered questions at wide receiver with Brandon Ayuk coming back from the ACL. Juwan Jennings is basically the given right now among the wide receivers. Would have gone over 1,000 yards had he not gotten kicked out of the game against the Cardinals in Week 18. And then Ricky Pearsall, he showed some good things late in the season, but one of the interesting things that Lynch said in their exit interviews was that Pearsall told him that he wishes the season was still going because he felt like he was just now starting to catch his stride. So Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, who didn't make much of an impact at all as a wide receiver as a rookie, he'll have that opportunity. And then a couple of the guys from the practice squad who are signed to reserve future contracts, Trent Taylor and Tariq Owen. So, I would expect the 49ers to add at the wide receiver position. It doesn't necessarily need to be, a first round draft pick as it was with Ricky Pearsall this season or this year, but a late round pick could possibly make a lot of sense. So that's the answer to Jackson's question. Thank you so much. What else do we have here? Just looking at the chat that's coming in. Here's a question. What does your offseason look like? Golf, vacation, draft, recon? The offseason is really, there's no such thing as an offseason in the NFL. I mean, basically the offseason is from the middle of June, once the offseason program ends, until the opening of training camp in late July. But what the immediate future holds for me, I won't be going to the Super Bowl this year. In the past, we had done Radio Row stuff from the Super Bowl. I was certainly looking forward to going to New Orleans, get a lot of good guests at the Super Bowl, but won't be doing that this year. But the plan is to go to the NFL Scouting Combine, where hope to also get some good guests and some good information at the Combine, get to see some of the prospects and kind of get a feel for what kind of people they are, as well as NFL executives, draft experts and such. So hope to play a little bit more golf this offseason for sure. And then, a trip here and there, nothing too crazy. No, I don't think I'm getting out of the country or anything like that for vacation. Here's from T49ers. Thank you, T49ers. Appreciate it. Love you, bro. Thank you, T49ers. Keeping it real. Do you think the 49ers would draft Penn State number 44? I am going to be honest with you here. I don't watch a whole lot of college football during the NFL season, just because I'm either traveling on Saturdays or I'm home on Saturdays and doing other things. But when I saw Penn State play, and I catch snippets here and there, but when I watched Penn State play late in the season, it might have been one of those games. It might have been with the first playoff game, maybe against SMU. When I watched number 44, Tyler Warren, I thought to myself, especially with the uncertainty about Kyle Juszczyk and his future, I thought, boy, that 44 would be a really good fit to replace the other 44. Tyler Warren is a tight end who is ultra versatile. And, the 49ers, they haven't really had a quality backup tight end behind Kittle, a guy who can do a lot of different things. And I think Warren would be exceptional. The question is, at number 11, where the 49ers are picking, is that too early for him when you can address defensive tackle or edge rusher? I tend to think it is, but I remember when I saw Warren play the first time, I made a mental note to myself, I have to have the 49ers taking him in my mock draft. At that point, I think they were going to be picking, 16, 17, something like that. And so um, when I put out the first mock draft this morning, I didn't go that route. And I probably had him probably had him going a little bit later than he will actually go in this draft. I believe I had him go into the Chargers. In fact, I know I had him go into the Chargers at number 25. I don't think Tyler Warren's going to last that long. I think he's a really good player. And if it were middle of the first round, I'd be more inclined to take him. But I think he's one of those guys that could play, an H-back type of position, line up at tight end. Could you imagine Kittle and Tyler Warren on the field at the same time, the kind of mismatches that would create, but also have him on occasion line up in the backfield, either catching passes out of the backfield or as a lead blocker out of the backfield. So, so that question is from T49ers. Thank you so much for that question and the scratch as well. I appreciate that. So, this is really kind of the first foray into looking at the draft and kind of anticipating what's going to happen down the line. As I said, I'm sure a lot of you know more about the draft at this point than I do. And probably in 2 months, you'll probably still know more about the draft than I do. But my philosophy is I'll try to watch some cut ups, some highlights of the players that could fit where the 49ers are. I don't, I don't profess to be a draft expert by any stretch, but what I'm able to do in a lot of instances is tap into some resources, people who followed the draft year round, either team executives, former team executives, people who have a really good idea of where NFL teams or what NFL teams think of certain players, not necessarily what the 49ers think of certain players, but just kind of a consensus of what the league thinks of them. Because what I've come to realize is, if I'm watching a player and I think, wow, he's really good, and then I talk to somebody who knows a lot more about the NFL decision making process than I do, I will always lean toward that person. The other thing that, when you watch film or just watch a player, the thing that's really important that people probably don't spend as much time on is just the character, what makes a person tick. And it's kind of fun, like going to the combine. You'd be surprised how much you can tell about a person just by talking to them for 5 minutes. Just kind of seeing what they're all about. Uh, what makes them tick, where their priorities are, and everything else. I mean, there have been guys that, in the past, I remember, telling 49ers people, once you get to know a player a little bit, both ways. Like, man, I'm surprised that guy lasted as long as he did because of just kind of the vibe that he gives off. Or um, there have been times where I've kind of boldly told people, I can't believe you guys took him there just because there's just something off about about that guy, and I'm not sure what you saw in him. And we've had those frank discussions, just kind of trying to build my reservoir of information and just kind of the process of what attracts certain teams to certain players. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Going back to that vacation draft recon, not too much vacation. Niner faithful, will JLC go to the Super Bowl? I don't believe she is. In fact, if I don't think she is, so I don't think either one of us will be going to the Super Bowl. And typically, what happens whenever the 49ers aren't in the Super Bowl is I'll get there, say on Monday before the Super Bowl, and leave like Friday afternoon. So um, the radio row stuff or the media row stuff um, is just a great avenue to get guests, to get information, to stockpile stuff for the 49ers Talk podcast. And then the great thing is, I'm home Friday evening from wherever the game is being played, and then able to watch the game from the comforts of my living room on Sunday. Uh, do you feel reworking the trenches in one off season is a stretch for them to compete for another Super Bowl? No, I don't think it's a stretch. I mean, let's just look at where the 49ers are with their depth chart. Um, right now, uh, what the 49ers, let's talk. Well, I guess we'll hit both sides of the ball. And by the way, I do have a radio hit on KNBR at 11:50, so I'll probably get off in about 20 minutes or so. Um, Trent Williams, there's optimism that he'll be back next year and that ankle injury isn't significant, but you still need a swing tackle. And, who's that going to be? Um, Jalen Moore handled that duty this season and played pretty well, I think, until he got injured and went on IR. But the 49ers need to do something there. He might have an opportunity for maybe a more expanded role, or maybe he just thinks it's a good fit with the 49ers. So we'll see what happens with Jalen Williams. At the guard position, left guard, right now, the three candidates for that left guard spot are Ben Barch, Spencer Burford, and Nick Zakel. It's very possible that one of those three will be starting at left guard because I don't think Aaron Banks will be back as a free agent. Center, Jake Brendel, Matt Hennessy, Drake Nugent. Again, very likely that Brendel is back, but he will get pushed by Hennessy and Nugent. Right guard will be Dominic Pooney, unless the 49ers decide that he's needed somewhere else on the offensive line. Remember, he's a guy with 5 position flexibility on the offensive line. And then right tackle, Colton McKivitz. I think he'll be back as a starter as well. I don't see a major makeover on the 49ers offensive line. I see one, perhaps 2 new starters. I would anticipate the 49ers could use a second or third round draft pick on an offensive lineman with the idea that maybe they don't necessarily need that player in 2025, but a guy who is capable of being a starter down the road. Remember, when they took Dominic Pooney, they didn't necessarily anticipate that he would be a starter year one. He surprised them and played pretty well and proved that he can be a long-term guy for the future. As far as the defensive line goes, I see that the major hole is a defensive tackle, but they still need more at edge rusher. Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, Drake Jackson, the 49ers hope can come back and do something, and Robert Beal. So at least they have 3 solid NFL players at defensive end with Bosa, Floyd, and Gross-Matos. Gross-Matos can also slide inside and rush the passer from the inside. And then defensive tackle, Malik Collins is a starter. Jordan Elliott is, I think, more of a rotational guy, and Clea Davis. So you can see right there, they need more depth. They need more bodies. I could see them taking a defensive tackle early. I could see them taking an edge rusher early, and then I could see them taking another defensive lineman later. 49ers have 10 scheduled draft picks, and so that's what we're looking at there. Let's see here. Do I feel that Kittle was snubbed for first team All Pro? I do, in the sense that Brock Bowers got it. He had the numbers, but Kittle is a more complete tight end with the blocking. The efficiency that Kittle had. Does it surprise me that a guy who put up those huge numbers that Brock Bowers put up was first team All Pro? No. Is it an egregious snub? No. But if I had a vote and I don't have a vote for the AP All Pro, I think I would have given it to Kittle. You could also probably accuse me of being, um, you know, the fact that I'm around the 49ers. I watch the 49ers play obviously more than the Raiders this year. But yeah, again, I wouldn't say a snub, but I think Kittle had a very strong case for being an all pro. Let's see what else we have here. What round 49ers in the offensive line in the draft? I'd say second or third round. Draft will depend on which players are returning. Well, what the philosophy is, remember now, free agency begins 6 weeks before the draft. So the team ideally, I know Kyle Shanahan said this in the past, he wishes that free agency came after the draft. But you don't ever want to leave any starting holes open for the draft because it's such a crapshoot. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know which players will be available. So they'll try to fill every spot in free agency. And then the philosophy always is, should always be, best player available in the draft. For instance, I've been talking a lot about defensive tackle or defensive line, but guess what? If Tyler Warren is the absolute best player on the 49ers board, according to their scouting department, according to their coaches, according to their uh, personnel department, I think you should take the best player. The best player, you can't go wrong by taking the best player because what you think is a need today or what you think is a position of strength today might not look that way down the road because of injuries or whatnot. So um, I would say yes, the 49ers will try to fill every position. They'll try to have starters, NFL starters after the first wave of free agency, and then the draft is used uh, to basically strengthen to supplement that roster. Um, let's see. I'm not quite sure I understand this question. Unique scouting, I find astrology interesting. Kyle is notorious for having an affinity for Virgo. I have no idea what that means, but yeah, not quite sure. Never looked at astronomical signs, but starting today, that's going to be part of the evaluation process. Wasn't Hoyer already here when Kyle got and John got here? No, Brian Hoyer was signed as he was part of that first class. The 48 when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over, I believe they basically had no quarterbacks in their contract. Um, Theoretically, Colin Kaepernick was under contract, but the 49ers made it known to him that his salary and everything else, that they were going to release him. And then he opted out of the contract. So they had no quarterbacks under contract at that point. With Purdy getting a big contract soon, fans expect the 49ers to let some players go, including fan favorites. Seems 49ers choose Debo over Greenlaw. Is that accurate? I don't think that that's accurate. I know that there was a thing on social media, and we talked about this. Jennifer and I talked about this on the 49ers Talk podcast about, and help me out. Well, someone, was it Sydney Warner, posted something on TikTok about Dre Greenlaw's fiance or partner basically saying goodbye. I don't think that that's happened. Like when I saw that, I was like, well, that seems kind of out of character for the 49ers to tell a player, hey, you're not coming back, especially Dre Greenlaw. Now, it could be that Dre Greenlaw has expressed to, his partner or other people that he has no desire to return to the 49ers. I kind of doubt that. But what I've said repeatedly is that, as horrible as the last year was for Greenlaw with the torn Achilles, and then coming back and only playing, one half of one game, I don't know what that market is going to be like for him as an unrestricted free agent. So I still think that it's a better than even chance that Greenlaw is back with the 49ers. I don't see him getting a long-term, multi-year contract, but I do think that um, I do think that the door is wide open for him to come back, and hearing what his teammates say about him, hearing what Shanahan and Lynch say about him. I think that that's still very much on the table. In fact, I'll get you the quote that John Lynch said about Dre Greenlaw, um, that certainly did not close the door on him at all. Um, he said, "We're doing everything in the world we can to bring Greenlaw back. We're not really into losing good players who are unbelievable people." I mean, sounds to me like they want him back, and they certainly have not closed the door on him coming back. Um, yeah, all pro. So for those of you who haven't seen the AP, which is considered the all pro team, announced its all pro team on what is it, Friday? And the only 49ers first team all pro, Fred Warner. And so he is obviously linebacker. He was a number 2 vote getter behind Zach Bond of the Philadelphia Eagles. Kyle Juszczyk finished second in the voting at fullback behind Patrick Ricard. George Kittle was second for tight ends behind Brock Bowers. And then I'm just kind of scanning the list to see if any other 49ers were mentioned. Any other vote getters? Let's see. Trent Williams got 1 vote at left tackle, where Tristan Wirfs was the guy. I don't think any other offensive guys. Edge rushers, where's Bosa? Bosa didn't get any votes for edge rusher. Interior lineman, I can't imagine any interior linemen. Linebackers, of course, Fred Warner. Cornerbacks did no votes for Diamador Lenore, and there were quite a few cornerbacks who got votes. Slot corner, slot. Diamador Lenore got 5 votes for that. Marlon Humphrey is the first team. Derwin James, second team. Cooper DeJean from the Eagles. So Lenore got a little bit of mention there, and then nothing with the safeties. I can't imagine any of the specialists. Well, Deebo Samuel got 2 votes for kickoff returner. Interesting. And let's see, did Tabor Pepper got some votes for long snapper. So those are the all pro guys. Christian, let's see, what does he say? Why do you think Greg Papa believes they should pay Purdy 30 to 40 million or flat out pay out his rookie contract? Has he said that? I haven't heard him say that. In fact, you know what? I'll be going on with Greg Papa and Greg Silver in 16 minutes. So I will ask him there. But no, I think that I don't know why he would say that. I mean, you just can't not pay Brock Purdy, and you can't just say play out your rookie contract. 40 minor. If you saw my the post yesterday about how Brock Purdy was the big winner of the offseason so far, hear what I have to say about that. But it was quite clear. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were quite clear in what they think of Brock Purdy. Let's see. Let me just kind of look here. Hey, some good morning from sunny Reading. Yeah, that's up in my neck of the woods. I am a Corning, California. Olive capital of the world is my hometown. So spent a lot of time in Reading. So thanks for checking in, Reading. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's be honest. That group is really social media savvy. The wording is intended to drum up engagement and attention, which has succeeded. I believe you're talking about the group the women, the wives and girlfriends of the 49ers. And you're right, they are very social media savvy. Do you think the 49ers under Kyle missed out on a Super Bowl with the two losses, the last two? Absolutely, they did. Yeah, no, they were 49ers were right there for two Super Bowls, 2019 season and of course last season. Uh, what happened? They got beat by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and there were big plays that happened in both games. A lot of reasons in both games that it turned out the way they did. But hey, 49ers had golden opportunities. What are they now? 5-3 in Super Bowls. Clearly, they had big time opportunities to win in 2012, where I think, I was going to say they were the better team. Obviously, they lost those one games, but it comes down to one game. 49ers could have easily won that game. And last year, they could have easily won that game. First team in NFL history, not just Super Bowl, NFL history to take two leads in the fourth quarter and one lead in overtime and still lose. And then, of course, the game in 2019. Yeah, so absolutely, they missed out on two Super Bowls. Let's see here. Thank you very much. Do you think a new DC will be given the latitude to bring in their own assistants? Um, yeah, yes and no, but I'm sure that'll be part of it. I think Kyle Shanahan will hire somebody that he knows. All that will be made clear in the interview process of what the new coordinator expects and what the new coordinator expects and what Kyle Shanahan's expectations of the new coordinator are going to be will factor in to the decision of who ends up getting that job. Um, let's see what we got here. How is Kittle second? Well, yeah, I mean, how is Kittle second? Let me just pull up some numbers. Why Kittle is second? Hey, you know me. I'm being around George Kittle. You see all the stuff he brings to the table for that team. But here's why he was second. The reason is because Brock Bowers caught 112 passes for 1194 and 5 touchdowns. Simple as that. Greenlaw took advantage of, or Mahomes took advantage of Greenlaw going down. I would agree with that. Enjoy the videos. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the honest reporting. Here's my philosophy is that, there was a comment, and I'm not sure who it didn't click on who the comment was, but yesterday someone in the comments under when I was talking about Brock Purdy said, I don't care what happens. I will never consider Brock Purdy a top flight or elite quarterback. And I thought, okay, that's from a fan, which is fine. But I think so many people in my business will just kind of dig their heels in. Either Brock Purdy is the best or Brock Purdy is the worst. And regardless of how good he plays, I'm not going to give him any credit. Regardless of how poorly he plays, I'm not going to criticize. My philosophy is always that I let my eyes determine what I think of players. And there have been many times this season where I criticize Purdy for not playing well, for making a poor decision, whatever the case may be. But then once the season's over, or you just take a step back, I think Brock Purdy's a really good quarterback. And I fully understand being around the team, seeing Brock Purdy, knowing what the coaches think of him, know what his teammates think of him. My overall view is Brock Purdy's going to get paid, and he puts the 49ers in a good position for the future because they don't have to worry about that position. So whether it's Kyle Shanahan, whether it's the team as a whole, whether it's Nick Sorensen, Yes, late in the season, about 3 or 4 games left in the season, I said that I believe Nick Sorensen was coming back as defensive coordinator, and guess what? That's I said it because that's what I believed, and when I was talking to people behind the scenes close to that situation, that is certainly, uh, the vibe I got. That is certainly what I felt where this thing was trending. Guess what? Things change, and now I'm able to change and go, what I said 3 weeks ago might not be the case anymore. I don't think he's gonna be back. I think I pretty much said that after the Cardinals game, and of course, he wasn't back. So, thank you. I always will always try to be honest with you. Let's see here. What makes what makes John and Kyle sincere? Um, What makes them sincere? Well, I'll say this. What makes them sincere? I don't know what makes them sincere, but if you're asking, are they sincere? The thing you hear when you talk to players, and let's see what time it is here. Okay, I got a few more minutes, a couple more minutes. The thing I respect about them, let's go with Kyle. Well, John is a guy that kind of keeps the even keel. Kyle is kind of a roller coaster with the emotions. You see it on the sideline. Um, but John's the sounding board. John stays in the building. John keeps Kyle grounded. They're a very good team working together. Kyle is extraordinarily honest, the most honest coach I've ever been around, whether it's on the record or how, in talking to reporters, or what you hear from players is that he doesn't BS you. So, if a player is playing poorly, he'll tell that player. He doesn't necessarily call out guys in the media, but um, he's very honest in dealing with the media. I don't think I've ever caught him in a lie. There will be times where he'll say, don't want to be a jerk. He's used a different word than jerk. He says, but I can't answer that. Um, and I remember the one time that he came the closest to lying was that draft day when they were trading uh, Trent Brown after they took Mike McGlinchey in the draft. And I asked Shanahan what does that mean for Trent Brown? And you could see Shanahan get so uncomfortable that he didn't even really want to answer that question because at that point Trent Brown was already on a flight to New England to go for a physical there. Okay, we just got a couple more minutes here. Um, what do we got here? Just looking. If Saleh gets a DC job, any chance Jeff Ulrich will take a position coaching job with the 49ers, or do you think he'll get boy, I would think Ulrich will get a defensive coordinator position somewhere. I know Ulrich would like to come back to the 49ers. There was an opportunity last year. As I understand it, the Jets declined the 49ers' request for permission for Ulbrich. But also, as I understand it, there were other things going on behind the scenes with Ulbrich that didn't necessarily make that at the time the right move for him and his family. So I don't know if he really pushed it in order to leave the Jets and come to the 49ers. But I don't think there's any question in my mind that Ulbrich would come to the 49ers. The one question I have, and I haven't talked to Saleh about this, is that the best move for him? In other words, if he doesn't get a head coaching job with the Jags or the Raiders, and some would say that those aren't even the best opportunities that he would have, is it in his best interest to go back to the 49ers and kind of get back under that Kyle Shanahan umbrella and remake himself to get back in the head coaching cycle for next year? Or is it better for him to go somewhere else and kind of create a new path? That's a question that he would have to ask himself. Okay. let's see. Why wouldn't the 49ers take a risk here with Greenlaw and offer him a decent amount of money on a 3-year deal? I mean, the risk is that I don't know that anybody at this point can be certain that his body can hold up. And when you look at the injuries the 49ers have had, does it make sense to sink a lot of money into a player that already has, coming off one injury? Remember, he had a bad Achilles on his right leg throughout the 2023 season. And then in the postseason, it moved over, probably because he was overcompensating, to his left leg, and the left Achilles is the one that gave out during the Super Bowl. When he returned to action late this season, it was the right Achilles that was bothering him again in that game against Miami. So that's why, I mean, if it takes the 49ers signing him to a long-term deal, 3-year deal or whatever, I guess that's something they'd have to consider. But my point would be, who would the 49ers be in competition with to sign him to a long-term contract? So that's what I'm saying. And at this point, with the salary situation at so many other spots, including what we talked about with Brock Purdy, I'm just not sure that it would be the wisest thing to do that. So, I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but it just seems to me like it's more risky, because of you'd be tying up money for the future. And when you are ready coming off a season where you've been decimated by injuries, I would think you'd want to be a little bit more cautious when it comes to paying money to guys with history of injuries. Okay. All right, everybody. A question about Rand Carthon. Do I see him returning? Oh, you know what? I got to take this. KNBR is calling. I go on at 11:50. In fact, it looks like I'm going on right now. So thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate the support and everything else. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And that is it for now.